I'm going to give a demonstration of threading this particular Janome model. This is my 15-year-old, at least 15-year-old 6260 Quilter's Companion Janome. I love this machine. But I'm going to thread this one and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Pop your thread on the spool pin and add your spool cap. Your machine should come with two of these caps, a small and a large, and you really want to use the one that is closest to the size of your spool. Now the first thing we need to do is wind a bobbin. So on this machine you are taking your thread, and on this one for winding the bobbin there's a little diagram, so I'm just going to follow that. But mostly what you're looking for is this. There's always a little tension disc that's just for your bobbin, and it usually looks like this. It has a little ring and another metal piece underneath, and your thread goes under that, and that is how you add tension so that your bobbin will wind nice and evenly. And you take your bobbin, if you can see this, and there's a holes inside the bobbin, and we're going to just put our thread through from the inside, grab it from the top, and we're going to pop it on this pin here, and we push that over to the right, and that engages the bobbin winder. And now I'm just going to put my foot on the pedal while hanging on to this thread so that it doesn't get pulled back out. I'm going to put my foot on the speed pedal down there, accelerator, and wind a bobbin. I'm going to stop for a second and clip my thread at the top there, and then I'll carry on winding. And there we go. I move that back to the left, and I'm going to lift it off. And now I'm going to remove the thread from the bobbin tension, and I'm going to thread the machine the rest of the way. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my presser foot lever. It's really hard to get a good angle to show the presser foot lever, but this is it here. I'm actually at the back of the machine showing you this. This is the lever. It's currently up. I'll put it down, and as you can see, the presser foot is now sitting on the bed of the machine. Up and down. Sometimes the lifter's on the back of the machine, sometimes it's here on the side. It's usually pretty easy to find though. So I've lifted my presser foot, which opens the tension discs. I'm going to make sure my needle is in the fully up position. I either do that with an up-down button or by turning the hand wheel toward me until this little gizmo is in the fully upright position. This is called the take-up lever, and it is what pulls the thread back up after the needle's gone down, and that's what creates your lock stitch. It's super important that you make sure your thread gets in there. Most modern machines have a numbered guide on how to thread your machine, and this one has it in the lid. Some of the others, it's actually on the machine by the parts you go around. So we're just going to follow the numbers. This is 1, 2, 3, and it clicked into the take-up lever. Now let's do that again so you can see it from the front. 1, 2, 3, and down here to 4. There's a guide here at the bottom of the needle bar, which I've tucked the thread behind, and the point of that is just to control the thread and stop it from, spinning around or whipping around. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to thread the needle, but I always suggest dropping that presser foot lever and giving your thread a tug. And if you can feel tension, you know that you actually did get it in between the tension discs. There's nothing more annoying than threading the needle and then realizing that you missed the tension discs and having to start over. Now this machine has a nifty little automatic needle threader, which you pull down from here. And there's a little wire on that just pops into the needle. Sometimes you have to give it a little bit of help to pop through. And then you're going to take your thread. I hope you can make out the thread here. I'm going around here, and then I'm coming back under on this side. And you make sure your thread stays there. And then you just gently release the lever. And if you can see, there is a loop that's come through the needle. And I can just gently pull that loop. Raise my presser foot to release the tension. And if you can see, it's actually damaged the thread a little bit, so I want to pull that right through. And I'll cut it on the cutter on the side. If your sewing machine doesn't have an automatic needle threader, there's a couple of tricks that work. First thing to do is take your sharp little snips or scissors and try and cut your thread on a diagonal to make it a little bit more pointy. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Then what I normally do is I stick my finger behind the needle because it actually brings the hole in the needle into relief a bit more and you can see it better. But if I was to do that now, I'd block the camera. So I'm going to have to do without. And you just holding the thread really close to the end, you just pop it through. And then you grab and pull through. And honestly, if I wasn't talking my way through this, that would have been a lot quicker than using the automatic threader. So frankly, more often than not, I thread my machine manually. Now let's look at loading the bobbin. You open the case by pushing that little black button to the right, and that pops the lid open, and then you can access the bobbin case. Make sure before you load your bobbin that the thread is coming down the left-hand side. I like to say it's like a letter P. You need to make sure that the thread from the bobbin gets seated in the bobbin tension mechanism. There's a little gap in the metal part at the front of the bobbin case. Your thread needs to go in there. I'm trying to point this out with the awl. I hope you're able to see it. Then you pull the thread around to the left in more or less a clockwise direction. Pull it right through and it is fully seated in the tension mechanism. As you pull the thread further, you want to make sure that the bobbin itself is turning in a counterclockwise direction. Let's do it again, just for practice. This time, I'm showing you how if you bring the thread around the bobbin clockwise, it kind of manages to automatically seat itself in the tension mechanism, and you might find it a little bit easier to do it that way. And then once your bobbin's in and threaded, you put the lid back on, and now we're ready to pull up the bobbin thread using the needle thread. You need to grip your needle thread, turn your hand wheel one full revolution. That takes your needle all the way down and brings it all the way back up. And then if you pull on the needle thread, it lifts this loop up from the bobbin. If you pull the loop through, you bring the bobbin thread all the way up, tuck both threads through the toe of your foot, and you're done. Now let me show you how to load the bobbin case for this type of machine. It's the same orientation of bobbin. Make sure the thread is coming down the left of the bobbin. You place it in the same way. Now you're going to draw your thread under this piece of metal at the front, and that will automatically force it into the tension mechanism. And then you see the numbers 1 and 2. You have the thread follow that path, and the little blade will cut it off for you. And that's you. Now on this machine, you don't necessarily have to draw up the bobbin thread with your needle, but I'm going to recommend you do it anyway. I think it makes a neater beginning of your scene.